Hello everyone, this is Spiro, and this is part 2 of a series of videos and associated articles from my enlightenedprogramming.com website, where I go over the argument that I'm trying to make as a whole that the IT industry needs to undergo a relatively big change, otherwise things are going to be pretty grim in the near future. So in the last video slash article, I talked about the cult of complacency in tech, where a lot of programmers, developers, etc., I find have a far too lax look at what they're producing in terms of software, websites, the code they use, the languages, libraries, and frameworks, and so on. And most of them actually defend their decisions and the state of the industry as it is right now, and don't realize that we're in a lot of trouble. In this video, I'm going to be talking about why people feel like their developer experience, their preferences in terms of how they program is not really helpful or useful in terms of programming itself. And if anything, it might actually be getting in the way of producing high quality work. If I can summarize kind of the components of the arguments from people who feel like things are generally okay, it would be something along these points. Today, websites and software do a lot more than they ever have in the past. Today, the developer experience to create these things has never been better. Today, we're able to quickly push products and iterate over them. Today, we've removed a lot of boilerplate code, or essentially we're reinventing fewer wheels. Today, we have an abundance of hardware capacity, and that hardware capacity allows us to cut some corners in our software, such that the end user doesn't even really notice that there's a problem. And today, we have internet bandwidth and speeds, which are much greater than they ever have been before, and so that allows us to have some wiggle room in terms of performance. So with all of the points above, people will take all of those together and say, see, we're actually doing fine. Sure, there may be problems, but overall, there isn't anything serious going on. And Spiro, you're crazy. What are you talking about? Those points aren't terrible, but the point of this video is the fact that they lack data. They're all emotional or feelings-based points. None of these points have any data to back them up. And very few people actually present data to me to back up any one of these points. As a matter of fact, I've probably only ever had one, maybe two people who've actually given me any data to back up one or more of those component points. Let me try and break down some of my opinions, which I'll derive strictly from opinion and not data. The data arguments that I will be presenting are going to come in the next few videos and articles. So websites and software do more today than they ever have before. Yes, I would think that this is true. However, why does that negate my point that we need to be doing better with our code output, our software, and our websites? An increase in features does not indicate that the tech industry is actually getting better and that things have never been better. I don't think this negates my point at all. We don't look at everything and go number of features equals the strength of the industry or the strength of your code or the strength of a website even. More often than not, based on all the scientific studies that I've read, the greatly underlying factor that determines whether a website in particular is successful or not, particularly when it comes to e-commerce, is performance, not number of features. So if we look at it a different way, there's actually another issue with this argument, which is if we look back, let's say 20 years ago, and 20 years ago we had 100 features in the entire tech industry, software, websites combined. We're just generalizing easy numbers. So we have 100 features, and then today we have 300. And so we look at the difference between these features and how things are performing optimally or not with all of the given features. Essentially, what you can end up with is a higher number of features but also a higher number of bugs and lack of stability. So number of features alone in a vacuum is not enough to determine whether there is good or bad exactly in the tech industry as a whole. The next argument is developer experience has never been better. And I think simply my counter argument would be that's just preference. You can have a good preference writing you can have a good experience writing good code, or you can have a good experience writing bad code. It's just preference. And your preference doesn't actually matter. What matters is the code you produce and how optimal and performant it ultimately is. Now, there are aspects to that need to be taken into account. For example, sometimes you just don't have the time, you need to move fast, you need to iterate fast. I get that. But I'm talking in generalities. And way too often, we generalize and lean too much on, but my developer experience, though. It's just preference-based, and it actually has no impact. If anything, I'm going to prove that leaning too much on developer experience has been the bane. It's a cancer to the IT industry. The next argument would be that we're able to quickly push out products and iterate over them. However, I would restate this argument with our ability to quickly push out products with many bugs and suboptimal performance and iterate with more bugs and even less performance has never been better. And I would refer you to recent events with CrowdStrike as per the timing of this video, as being a way that a company iterates really fast, but it actually made things worse, not better. And yes, it does ignore any time that CrowdStrike may have pushed fixes really fast and saved companies from hacks or other malicious intents. But you can see that this argument is not fully enclosed. It's not just a state that things have never been better, and so it is. The next argument is that we're reinventing fewer wheels, but I don't think that we consider how a wheel is made. This aspect is ignored in this argument. If someone invents a wheel and it's so shoddily made that as soon as you use it, it breaks, wouldn't you want to reinvent it? And then if you did want to reinvent it, wouldn't you care to see how that wheel was made in the first place so that you knew how to fix it when it broke? But I think what's happening in the industry is that we don't even know how to invent wheels to begin with anymore. We've just essentially signed away our thinking capacity to other people who have invented wheels in some ambiguous form that we don't truly understand. And we go, okay, good enough for us. And managers sign off on it and companies sign off on it and programmers get their paychecks and they're happy and they feel great and their developer experience is fantastic. I think we need to go back to ensuring that we understand how our wheels are made, and maybe we need to be reinventing a few of them. The next point would be that hardware and internet are so advanced that we can cut a few corners and you don't have to have optimum performance. However, if hardware and internet has progressed so much that we can cut these corners, my counter argument would be, why would we want to lower our standards? Well, upon what reason can you give me that these things would mean that we get to lower our standards for what we produce? We used to have much better standards, in my opinion, even 10 years ago, and we simply don't anymore. And I think the answer is because things are competitive. The market is competitive, and you need to move fast. You need to be able to cut those corners, because if you don't, someone else will. But I'm hoping that with the next few videos and articles, I can prove that this is false, that this is scientifically false, that there are studies after studies that prove that when you care about what you're doing and you don't cut corners, the longevity of your company or your product far outpaces anybody who tries to go for that quick cash grab. So I find this argument falls flat on its face, and I don't think that this argument is a good argument for why we should be lowering our standards. And then finally, the last argument is, well, what, Spiro? You want us to go back to writing assembly for everything? If you want everything to be performant, then just go back to assembly. Now, look, let's be real for a second. Why would that be bad? Even if I did want that, why would that be bad? Is it because it would take longer to get the same products out? Maybe, but I would argue that the products that you created would be a lot more stable and a lot more performant. So I don't understand why that's actually like a serious counter argument to me. And what's more is that if people actually did even just a little bit of assembly, programmers in particular did just a little, they would understand more about what's going on under the hood. And so when they worked at the abstracted level that makes the developer experience nicer than in assembly, they would understand better what they're doing. So it would just fundamentally just be good all across the board. The second aspect of this is it's just preference arguments again. You prefer to work in abstractions because it makes your developer experience nicer. Whereas working in assembly would be like a slog. It's difficult to wrangle assembly code and make sure that it's functioning correctly. And so therefore, you could make a case that like, hey, it's also ripe for issues. It is. But we are seeing the outcomes of, but my developer experience though play out in real time. And we can see, and again, I'm hoping that the data that I present is going to demonstrate this, that it's not all it's cracked up to be. And we've leaned on that way too much. We've gone too much in the my preferences direction. Lastly, I don't want us to go back to assembly for everything. What I would like to see is willingness to explore things that are lower level. It's willingness to attempt to try to ask the question about why you're using what you're using in order to create something and whether it's actually the right usage for it. And if anything, I would like to push for programmers and developers to go lower. Dive deeper into what you're doing. Don't just take the abstraction and go, well, the abstraction solves a problem for me. I don't care about the problem. Go learn about the problem. We don't encourage programmers to dig deep enough. And I would argue that assembly might be a great way to do kind of an introductory exercise or an introductory program in assembly, just so that you can say you've done it and you've learned something from it, because I guarantee you will. So overall, everything I've just said, this entire video and the article and all the arguments presented to me essentially are two or more people arguing about their feelings, their intuitions, and these kinds of arguments that I have on my streams and whatnot, they always tend to just stick to the feelings. And it's always a matter of who's more persuasive with their feelings in order to persuade another person to feel the same way as them. There's no data behind this. And so moving forward in my next video and article, I'm going to start breaking down data-based studies, case studies, longitudinal studies, longitudinal. Maybe I need to pick up some English, I don't know. But there will be actual data to back up the points that I'm trying to make and to show that the way that we actually operate in the world in this industry is not the way that we feel about operating in the world. And these two things have gone very far apart in a negative way. And at the end, I hope that I can encourage programmers, maybe like you who's watching, that there's a better path, that it's not too late to fix things. It's actually not that difficult, and that we can do it. And if we do it, the positive impacts on not just the industry itself, but on society as a whole will be, we probably won't even recognize the difference. If we could compare, it would be so different. It would be night and day. That's my opinion, but I'm hoping that I can prove that. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I'm on YouTube, obviously. I'm also on Twitch, where I live stream. If you want to interact with me, I'm on Twitter. I am on Rumble. I'm on Algoria.tv, which is a streaming platform for developers. If you want to support me, please leave likes, subscribe. That really helps me out. I have some open source work that you can contribute to or help fund to continue, whatever you're comfortable with. Leave comments. Let me know what you think. I appreciate all of your time, and I hope that this was informative. Have a good day, good night, wherever you are. Talk to you soon.